Hi there, we're moving on to Mark chapter 7, verse 31 to 37. The healing of a deaf and mute man. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hand on the man. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means, be opened. At this the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. Now this is a great passage for a number of reasons, but the one I just want to focus on is something I call the theology of God. And it's a much kind of wider lesson or theme that goes through the Bible, but it's very evident here. And kind of a bit subtly, and maybe not the point of this message, but I like the way it says it here. Some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk. They begged him to place his hand on the man. So these were people that had heard what Jesus could do, and they understood the theory that if Jesus places his hand on the man, that's the way it's supposed to work. That's the theology of how God heals. It's placing a hand on the man. That's the way God works. Then it would happen. And Jesus kind of contravenes that whole thing. Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. I mean, that, like, I don't know how it looked, or just touched it, or I don't know. But he puts his fingers in the guy's ears. He spits and touches the man's tongue. Not what the people were expecting. And it's just such an exciting piece because you find that again and again through the Bible, and yet somehow Christians, followers of Jesus, get to a point where we have it all worked out. This is the box. This is how God works. This is the only way God can speak. This is the only way God can work. This is the only way that God looks like. Baptism has to happen this way. Speaking in tongues has to happen. And you can only be a Christian if you do this. You can only be if you do it our way and the way our church does and all that kind of thing. And the Bible exposes so much of that as garbage. We have our pre-conditioned ideas. Jesus, this is how you have to work. And he's like, wait, watch this. And the miracle is that they get what they want. The guy can hear, the guy can speak, and then Jesus says, okay, don't speak. I mean, there's probably a whole nother message in that. Like, what can't you do? You can't speak. Okay, now you can speak, but don't. But the point is, all through the Bible, there's God reveals himself in different ways. God reveals himself as a cloud or a pillar of cloud, a pillar of fire. He reveals himself as an angel that only the donkey can see in the story of Balaam. He reveals himself in the fire that Moses speaks to in the burning bush. He reveals himself as a little baby. He reveals himself as a man who is hanging on a cross. He speaks in different ways. There's a rumbling voice from the sky. There's a still, quiet, gentle whisper. There's prophets. There's people that write the Bible that speaks to us. There's messengers, angels that come and deliver the word. There's a voice from heaven. Well done. This is my son in whom I'm well pleased. And so he looks different ways, he speaks in different ways, and this is a great story of how Jesus heals blind people in different ways. And in this case it's a deaf and a mute man, but if you follow how Jesus heals blind people, there's one where he touches the man, there's one where he speaks a word, there's one where he spits on the ground, there's one where he spits in the guy's eyes, and it's like it's different every time. There's no set theology, there's no method, there's no way. What is the heart of my teaching? It is love. What is it? It's love God, it's love people. And in Matthew 6:33 it says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. It's like, make the main thing the main thing. After that, it doesn't really matter. Does it matter that if you're in the middle of a desert and you only have a cup of water, that the person that is desperate to get baptized can't be fully immersed? Does that matter? The thief on the cross could not be baptized, and yet Jesus says, today you will be in paradise with me. Sometimes the way that we do things, sometimes the specific ways that we allow God to do things, the ways we allow God to speak or work, can act as barriers and get in the way of people hearing from God, can get in the way of people seeing God. And we do need to be careful. We do need to have a theology. We do need to kind of understand how God works. But we need to be careful that we don't make it so rigid that it stops God from working, that we trap God into this box, and anything outside of that we say, oh well, that can't be God. God worked differently and spoke differently all throughout the Bible. Who's to say that he can't do it differently today? That is a powerful passage. And so I just encourage you, open your eyes. God, if you want to speak to me in a different way today, if you want to reveal yourself in a different way, if you want to get me to act in a different way today, let me be open to that. Let me hear your Spirit lead me, guide me, direct me, and who knows where God is going to take you today.